Welcome to my annual road trip. This time I'm taking this Alfa 147 1.6 twin spark with almost 200,000 kilometers on the clock and more than 20 years old to the UK with a stop at Festival of the Exceptional. Will it be able to manage the 5,600 kilometers? Who knows? But I bet it's going to be fun. And also very warm, apparently. So far so good. We've just forgotten our sandwiches and have to get back. They are here now. Cool. Let's go. It's the same for all 147s, but we need this little key for the fuel cap. It's ridiculous. We're just doing a quick stop while still in Portugal, where petrol is a bit more expensive than in Spain. We're just gonna put enough to get us to Ciudad Rodrigo, where we're gonna fill the tank because it's much cheaper. Done. That's not a lot of petrol, but that's enough. 33 degrees here. Jesus. Anyway, let's go. We don't have much time today. We have to be in Burgos at midnight. Oh no, someone might not be having a good day. I almost forgot about the squeaky clutch pedal, so if you really can't tolerate the sound, I'm sorry. I tried to get rid of it. Maybe in a future video, you'll see how to do it. Galaxy later. This is a bit of a strange angle, but never mind. We're gonna do it what we have. Yeah, thank you, Mercedes. I'm not gonna lie, I was annoyed when I left home because preparing everything took more than I expected. Then I had to go back. Then the clutch pedal started making that horrible creaking noise again. And to make things worse, as I was entering the motorway, I noticed that the cruise control didn't want to come in, but it is working now. And as we have settled at more or less 70 miles per hour, 120 kilometers per hour, that's now behind us. We are comfortable enough here. The car has no issues sitting at this sort of speed in the motorway. It's not too noisy, it's decent. The microphone makes it seem worse. And yeah, it's fresh here. The sound system is good. And we just have to cruise in this boring motorway. I don't have a lot to add now, and I hope I don't, because that would be bad news. And well, it's the first day, so give me a little bit of a break, Alfa. What I can tell you for now is that 60 kilometers in, what have I just done? Wrong button. 60 kilometers in, the board computer says we're doing 7.3 liters per 100 kilometers, which should translate into something like mid-30s, I think. Oh yes, tolls. We're paying 60 cents for around 5 or 6 kilometers. I wonder if there are already tolls in the motorways that we're using in Spain. Because in last road trips, I didn't pay a cent in Spain, which was nice, compared to the extortion that you suffer in France. The rear wiper salutes you. Another fun thing is that I was really not thinking, and I was going to turn on the AC, and instead of clicking the button for the AC, I pressed the button for the boot. But thankfully, although it's an Alfa, it's clever enough to understand that no, it's not going to open the boot while we're doing 120. Here's a break from my voice. Spanish culture connoisseur is saying that it's España. Okay, I'll believe her. So double face palm. Anyway, not everything is great about entering Spain. We were doing 120 kilometers an hour, and now we're doing 80 for some reason that I don't understand. We're just crossing Viaducto de la Ribera del Campo, and apparently that's very funny. I just remembered that we took the garbage bag to drop it when we got out of the house, but that garbage bag is still with us, so technically you could say we've come all the way to Spain to drop our garbage. The limit might be 60 miles per hour, but look at that, the road is in beautiful condition. And you've just seen that it's 90 kilometers to Ciudad Rodrigo, which is where the petrol station is. Scratch that. Maybe the road is not that good. And the Alfa is managing to make it look way worse than it really is. It wouldn't be as bad in the Rover, for example. Which tracks, because I've already noticed that these shock absorbers have had it. They are not very good anymore. The car is already firmer than other cars in this class, but with worn shock absorbers, obviously it's still heavy. Okay, it seems to have improved a little. Time for our first full tank in Spain. It's already filled by garbage. Ridiculous. By the way, 1 liter is 152 euros for petrol here in Ciudad Rodrigo, in this place at least, which is really cheap. It seems we have now done 251 kilometers, and Google Maps is saying that we still have 251 kilometers to go, so we're at exactly half of this part of the trip. We are going from my home in around Portugal to Burgos. I don't know if I told you that. It should be a 5-hour trip, more or less. And yeah, we're in the middle now. Ooh. This car doesn't really deal very well with some of these irregularities, as you can see. Apart from that, everything's going well. And yeah, speaking of driving in a straight line, our next turn is only in 100 kilometers, so you see how boring this is. So much for a clean car. It seems we have run over all of the mosquitoes in Spain. Doing this part of the trip after a day's work was a good idea to give us a head start of 500 kilometers actually, because we were doing a lot of miles for only 2 weeks. But I'll have to admit it, I'm a bit tired, and it's still not really that late. It's not even 9 o'clock in Portugal than in Spain. The sunset in Spain seems to be later. I mean, it's 10 to 10 here in Spain, and it's still day, you know, and still 29 degrees. A few kilometers back, the cruise control decided to play up again. It took me 6 or 7 attempts to actually have it engage, but we're set now. However, what we also have is that light. It seems that the car believes there's a baby sitting on the passenger seat, which would mean that the airbag won't deploy. I guess that when I turn the car off and turn it on again, that will go away, but we'll see. We'll see. This is the fuel consumption for the last 300 kilometers since the beginning then, and it seems it's pretty much what it does at 120 kilometers an hour, which is not exactly impressive, but it's not bad. I mean, it's a 1.6 petrol engine and it's an Alfa, so I wouldn't expect better than that. we are running out of daylight, more or less at the same time I was running out of energy, but thankfully we're almost there. And we're parked. I hope this isn't one of those situations where people get out of a parking spot in a very Spanish way, which means hitting your bumper twice or 3 times. It's really pleasant now, and it's 11 in the evening. It's really good. If all the other studios and rooms are like this, I will be very happy. After waking up at 8 in the morning on a Saturday, paying way too much for breakfast, and checking that the car was covered in mosquitoes, we were on our way again. After the missus did her makeup, of course. The ergonomy in this car is maybe a bit better than in Alfas of late, but still not perfect. As you can see, if you want to access those buttons in the radio, you can't, with a bottle of water here. And even if these are short, you know, the one that goes in here, very nice to be able to have a second one in a cup holder. Yeah, that doesn't go all the way because of the bottle. Not great, Alfa, not great. Now, probably the Italians who designed this were like, why do you need a second cup holder for? That's just for a small coffee or something. And I get that, but in this specific circumstance, it would be nice to have a fully functional second cup holder. Today it's another almost 5 hours of driving to Bordeaux, and most of it will also be on the motorway. I hope it's not too expensive. I was thinking I would need to find another charger because this one doesn't really fit very well. But actually I think we can use some paper to just make some pressure there. Just a small touch and yeah, it goes off. So let's see if it works. And sure enough, it is working. Let's see how much the variator decides to sink today. Not much actually. It's just the tick from probably a small leak in the exhaust manifold, I hope. But it goes away after a couple seconds, so I'm not too worried. It's already not as loud. The year is 2035 and she's finally ready. Okay, so 5 kilometers in, we're already in the motorway going towards San Sebastian. I'm already undoing my sneakers because it's much more comfortable to drive barefoot actually, since it's a lot of miles. We've already set the cruise control to 120 kilometers an hour and that's it. We have very little to do in the next 200 kilometers or something like that. What has just happened to the weather, Spain? That's a cool tunnel. And look at that. That's interesting. Actually, it's even more interesting because it's a Portuguese Seicento with Confederação Helvética, so for Switzerland, a sticker. So that means they're visiting, they've been there, we don't know. Now we've just been passed by a Mustang, so this has quickly gone from very boring to interesting. And now an S80 in a lovely color. Okay, this one was not that bad. It's far from the first time that I cross Spain, but it always amazes me how the scenery changes every couple hundred of kilometers. Now that we are in Basque Country, that's what I meant to say earlier, look at the scenery. It's green. Also, a couple miles back, I forgot to remove the with tolls option in Google Maps. And Google Maps sent us to Autopista 1, didn't actually get to enter the motorway. I passed the toll booth. There was a roundabout after that, and I turned around. And just for that, for using that roundabout, I paid also €1.40. Now, that was catastrophic. And the Basque Country also gives us something interesting, which is corners. Finally, I have to do something while driving. That makes for a change. And switching sections that go downhill and uphill. Well, what do we have here? The classic C15. So many of them in Spain, and actually in this trip, that's the first one that I'm seeing. Because probably they're not the best for motorways, and this one is doing 100, which is actually not too bad. If you don't know, C15s, they are legendary because you can basically use them for everything you want. And they will go on and on and on forever, probably. Also, this section of twisties, well, not a section, all of the Basque Country is built on twisties. As a driver, you notice that this car has good body control and seats that really keep you in place. But it's even more important for people that are not driving. And I know that my passenger would be going for the door handle in the Rover, for example. That's not happening in this car. Anyway, we are almost there at the pumps, which are not too far from the border, within more 10 kilometers, 15. As I was saying, we've just filled the tank again. This time it was only 40 liters, we still had plenty of petrol. It was cheap, €1.57 per liter. Calm down, Audi, it's always an Audi driver. We're doing 100, but what we want. Yeah, go away now. Anyway, we should be good until we get to 2. I'm not sure we get to 2 with this tank. And that's it. We're now on a French motorway, the A63. And I hope tolls are not too expensive. We can now do 132.
We can, after I rev the tits out of this. And even then, it was not enough to not hinder Mr. SUV's progress. Insert your favorite cuss word here.
Another one. Well, that's annoying. Oh, look at that Romanian 5 Series E60. Yeah. We really live in a globalized world because there's well, 2 French cars there, a Spanish one here, a Romanian one there, and this one is Portuguese. Yeah, we've seen that one, for example, from Austria, the Skoda. A Tesla from Denmark, well, obviously it was a Tesla. And from Germany too. Netherlands. Have I said Belgium? Yeah. Another €2.90. And we're paying around 12, I think, for the entire motorway up until Bordeaux. Could be worse, even now tolls usually are very expensive in France. Well, someone has got the right idea, because that's exactly the car that I should have brought for this trip, and it looks very nice too. That's a French Romeo 500 though, so it's literally from here. Today we're being even more economical than yesterday. Maybe the average speed was a little bit slower, I'm not sure about that. I think what really made the most difference is probably the inclines. Maybe we had less sections going uphill, I can't vouch for that. And using the air conditioning a little bit less. We're still using it, just not as much. And yeah, At some point it was actually showing 6.6, but it's already gone up and it will keep on going up because we're now on the motorway. But yeah, it's helping the total average because that's now 7 liters per 100 kilometers, which is probably high 30s in terms of mpg. Average speed has gone down a little bit, but before our stop at the petrol station it was 100 kilometers an hour. This will obviously keep on dropping as we start stopping in more places to visit. We've done a lot of continuous miles so far, but that's not gonna be the entire trip, otherwise it will be boring. Let's check. 3 hours driving today and almost 300 kilometers driven today, and now, yeah, of course we're going uphill, that's why the actual consumption is high. Almost 8 hours driving since leaving home, and we should have a couple more till we get to Bordeaux. Almost 2 hours, I think. Oh lord, another one. In case you're interested, you can pay with contactless, which helps. That's nice. And from the UK. Sub moment. A 9.5. I like a 9.5. Swedes doing things in a different way. Actually, they had the right idea at the time. Because you see, a couple of years later, and you see a lot of manufacturers doing 2-liter engines with a turbo. It seems that's the sweet spot for power and efficiency. And they were doing it since the 90s. I mean, they were doing it before, but the 9.5 is from the late 90s. And went well into 2010, 12. Is that an old Renault Traffic? Whoa, it is. That's great. Look at those curtains. Wow, some sort of camper van. Very nice. When was the last time you've seen one? I can tell you, probably years ago, in Portugal at least. Yeah. And from what I've seen on Google Maps, it's not gonna be long while we get around Bouchon. Just wait. We've done about 5 kilometers and look at that. It's really, really, really bad. I wonder what happened. That doesn't look normal. And we're just braking now too. Predictably, there's been an accident somewhere, so we are finally slowing down. It's a 10-minute delay, it could be worse. That is nice. We are making better progress now. Only 20 minutes to go. We have just arrived to Bordeaux. Actually, this is the Bastide area, and everything's going swimmingly apart from the cruise control sometimes not wanting to engage, I don't know, and just losing this.
We've been greeted by trams and a very energetic band. Cool. I like Bordeaux.
Believe it or not, it's the first 147 that I see parked here.
Time to leave our sustainable but a bit too hot hotel room. We've been lucky that this was a Sunday, otherwise we'd have to pay for parking.
Nothing like a car that's been waxed. We have used around a quarter of a liter for around 500 kilometers, so it would work at around 1 liter per 2000. Not too bad actually, it was worse before. So the rain has stopped, which means we're giving a bit of a break to our poor wiper arms. I hope they make it the whole trip. The weather should be better in Tours anyway, and Tours is where we are heading. We're headed off today. Today it's around 330 kilometers, 4 hours of driving. We're not doing any motorways. I mean, we're currently doing 110, but this is not considered a motorway. And we might have some route national too. I think it's the N10. Just to correct myself, the car didn't do 500 kilometers with the quarter of a liter of oil that it has used. It did around 478. I think that's what it was saying there. That seems better than what I've seen with the other oil. Now with the 1060, maybe it's dropped a bit because of that, or it's dropped a bit because we're doing motorway work at reasonable speeds, so maybe it's a bit easier on the engine. because there was this guy here. Thank you. Now we can. In fifth. It's a bit noisy, but with music, it's actually okay. So much for saving some fuel up.
People say that ignorance is bliss. In this case, being bored is bliss.
I was trying to figure out what was the real fuel consumption from Ciudad Rodrigo to Irun, two places where we fill up the tank. So we've done around 560, actually not around, we've done 561 kilometers from one to the other, and we've used 39.1 liters for that distance, which works out at around 6.9 liters per 100 kilometers, so around almost 40 mpg, if I'm not mistaken. That's very good. I'm relatively well impressed. I mean, it's still sort of early in the trip, but at the same time, we've already done 1,000 kilometers. Even if something goes wrong, I mean something else, because something's already gone wrong, as you've seen with the wiper arm. That had already gone wrong before we left for the trip, so I already knew of that issue. But anyway, even if something else goes wrong, I'm relatively well impressed. I cannot touch wood because there is no wood in this car. But yeah, we have to come to this sort of road to finally encounter some older cars and some interesting ones, like that E30 that you've just seen. A couple of kilometers back, we've seen a BX. It was looking a bit tatty, but it was still a BX. And there was also a Mustang from probably 68 or something like that. I can't distinguish between them, but I know it was that generation. Oh, look at that one. It's an Iveco. Yes, it is. Lovely. Yeah, it started raining again. But anyway, what I wanted to show you is this. 6.5 liters per 100 kilometers. That's surprising in a good way. It tells me that mostly things are working fine in this engine.
As you can see, the motorway gave place to some national routes which cut right through some quaint villages and also gave us the opportunity to see things like this.
Yeah, it was an AMI. I don't know if it was a 6, which is based on the 2CV. I think it has the same engine too.
And in no time we were in Tours, where we found the funkiest basin and also some local oldies. And not so oldies, I suppose. I swear, this is like the fourth Alfa 147 that I've seen in this trip, and actually it's just by our studio that we booked. Of course, this is a facelift, but that's still cool to see. With more than 1,300 kilometers under its belt, it was time for the Alfa to accumulate some more. The weather was looking a bit worse and I was praying for it not to rain. The wiper mechanism on the Alfa was not feeling particularly solid. More about that later in the trip.
We're now leaving the castle of Chenonceau, I think that's the name, and we're going to Amboise in order to grab some lunch. We've already done 30 kilometers from Tours to the chateau this morning, but no time to actually record anything. But yeah, it was great. The chateau is really beautiful. And now we're going to grab a bite. After that, then the trip begins again because we're headed to Rouen. We're done with lunch and we have now left actually the place where we've eaten. It was very good, that boulangerie, and very crowded, which is always a good sign. And no tourists, we were the only ones, because most tourists that visit the castle, the Chenonceau, probably eat around there. Anyway, we have around 250 kilometers to go, 3 hours and 30 left. We can't go too quickly, at least in this section. It's now 70 again, but you know what? I'm tired of motorways, and they are expensive. They this is fine. We have time. Now, I'm having some issues again with the cruise control. Sure, we are going slowly, but it makes sense to use it here because it's just straight. So I'm gonna try to engage it now and take my foot off the floor, off the pedal, sorry. And as you see, it doesn't engage. I'm going to try again, 80, and nothing. Okay, it did now. There's some sort of trick that I'm not getting, but it's gonna be useful for the road ahead, as you can see. Although the speed just dropped to 70. This engine makes a good noise. We haven't got a lot of construction works until now. We've had some 1 or 2 kilometers ago. And we have them again here. I think they are resurfacing the road. At least they were just behind, which means that we can do fun stuff like this. Calm down, we're just doing 80. No, really. This is not particularly quick. It's fun though. We have to take what fun comes our way because this is another boring road in the middle of nowhere. Nice fields though. We are at the Leclerc fuel pumps at Chartres, and yeah, a bit more expensive than in Spain. But just before I fill it up, look at that, 5.8. Sure, we got a lot of zones in which you could only do 70 or 80 kilometers an hour, but that's just amazing. I mean, yeah, average speed is not great, but that has helped the total average. Let's fill it up. Actually, we've ended up filling the tank in a Total Energies petrol station. It was a bit more expensive, but on the other hand, I've been able to just pay for what I've filled. This didn't happen in other self-service stations where I've been. What happened was the amount I've filled, because it's an international bank card, they hold that amount in the account, so it's not available for me to use for a couple of days. And at the same time, they have an amount that they block, and in one of them it was a very high amount. It was 120 euros when I've actually filled less than that. I don't particularly like that. Anyway, just to give you an idea, the last time we had filled up the tank was in Irun, and I'll just show you now in the map so that you can have an idea of the distance we have gone with just one tank. It's actually amazing because we've crossed almost the entirety of France. I mean, there's still a bit to the north, but it's doing pretty well, this car. The car has done so far 1,514 kilometers since we left home, which is a lot. We are just behind a lovely Twingo from the first generation, but still in a traffic jam. We have only 20 kilometers to go, but 40 minutes, which tells you a bit about how slow this route is. This clutch is annoying me, and it's one of those days that when you turn the air conditioning on, it gets too cold. It's too cold when it's turned on, and it's too hot when you turn it off.
We have eventually arrived to Rouen, and on the next episode you can see us make it to the ferry, make it to some interesting English cities, and of course make it to Festival de Exceptional. So, see you there!